So over the past few weeks, I've got my hands on a lot of new gaming mice around here. I didn't immediately dive into doing reviews on everything as they came in because honestly, they were coming in at such a rate, and every time I got one that was new or unique versus what I've been using, it really challenged me to think about what I look for in a gaming mouse. And experimentation's really not a luxury most of us can afford when we're doing PC gaming. It gets really expensive. I mean, hell, I wouldn't be able to test half the stuff I do if it weren't for the channel and for you guys. So today's just a short think piece, kind of talking about what I've seen, my observations about the market, and it'll kind of frame up a series of reviews that I'm going to be bringing to the channel in the next few weeks. You're looking for cheap PC games? Check out Kingwin.net. Click the link in the description below to help support the channel and never pay full retail again. Yo, I'm Brian P. You're watching Bad Seed Tech, and today we're talking about the gaming mouse market in general for 2018. Kind of what's real, what's hype, give you guys some pointers on how you can choose the best mouse for you. The conversation is going to primarily revolve around general use gaming mice and FPS gaming mice with maybe some talking points about how they would apply to other genres or playstyles. So I just wrapped a review for the Razer Naga Trinity. If you haven't seen it, you can check it out right here. I had to go on Twitter and pick the brains of some buddies because honestly, I was really unfamiliar with the way that mouse operated or what a MOBA or MMO mouse did in general. One thing that kept coming up in conversation that I thought was really interesting is that the majority of people don't really experiment around with their peripherals. There's a small group, myself included, that are just fanatics or are constantly looking for ways to up their FPS game. But for the most part, people pick a peripheral in a time of need and they stick with that until it either dies or fails to perform like it did when it was new. And I kept hearing over and over again that this happens for a couple of primary reasons. The first and most obvious one is budget. A lot of times, if you're buying the most hyped, most talked about flagship mouse, it's not going to come cheap. Even if you earn a lot of coin, you can easily nickel and dime yourself to death buying every $40 to $70 gaming mouse that hits the market. But the more interesting reason to me was age group. I fall in what we'll graciously call the late 30s. A lot of guys that fall in that same age group have been PC gaming for a long time. They have a tendency to pick one peripheral and mate with that thing for life for one very specific reason. When we started PC gaming, there was no choice. A mouse was a mouse. It was your input device and it pulled double duty as your gaming peripheral. You didn't really have the ability to go out and get a peripheral that was going to be complementary to your hand size or your play style. You just got what you got. The mouse did not adapt to you, you adapted to it, and you either got good or you continued to suck. Fun side note here, the first mouse I could find that was marketed specifically to gamers that most closely resembles what we use today was released in 2000. It was called the Razer Boom Sling. I found the promotional advertisement video for this thing on YouTube. It is utterly hilarious. I'm gonna link it in the description below. You gotta give it a watch. Razer. Honorable mentions go out to the Microsoft IntelliMouse 3.0, as well as the Logitech Wingman, which looks like a foot. If you got any other early mouse memories, or you could think of anything else that really changed the playing field that was marketed specifically to gamers, I really want to hear about it. Sound off in the comments. So fast forward to nowadays, and it seems like the possibilities and the level of choice out there are just endless. Now, let's get two things out of the way that are pretty important before we move along here. Number one, I get this question all the time. What is the best gaming mouse? What is the perfect gaming mouse? There isn't one. There's no such thing. There's way too many variables in the human factor of that equation for there to be one perfect or best one-size-fits-all mouse. It doesn't exist. And number two, if you find yourself fortunate enough to be both able-bodied and right-handed, the perfect mouse for you already exists. I promise it's already been invented. It's already sitting on a store shelf or in a warehouse somewhere. We have simply come way too far with sensors, switches, and software, and weights, and size, shape, lighting, aesthetics, and configurations for there to not be a perfect mouse for you already out there. Left-handed folks have a much tougher go of it. There's a ton of variables and a ton of choice out there on the market. When you find the perfect mouse for you, it generally comes down to one, what type of game do you like to play, and two, specifically nailing the size and shape. It's the best place to start. One thing I kept noticing as I was trying out all these new mice is that the ones that felt extremely comfortable to me right out of the box oftentimes most closely resembled the size and the shape of the mouse I had been using most consistently. If either the size or the shape was too far off from what I've been using as my main, it took me a couple days use to really get accustomed to whether or not I'd be able to adapt to that mouse. So just because something doesn't knock your socks off right out of the box doesn't mean it's no good for you. You might just need to take some time to adjust. And that works both ways too. If you open the box and something feels amazing to you because it feels vaguely familiar, after you use it for a couple days, you could very well find little nuances that make it a less desirable choice for you. The best example I can use to illustrate this is coming from a Razer DeathAdder for like a year and then buying my second real gaming mouse, which was a Corsair M65 Pro. M65 Pro is a really solid mouse, but the way I hold an M65 is way different than the way I hold a DeathAdder. So the M65 did not feel immediately comfortable to me. It was too heavy and cumbersome. I didn't have a good experience with it. But fast forward a little while, I'd used a couple different mice in between. I revisited the M65. I did some adjustments to the weight, and it became one of my favorite mice. Now, you've probably heard me mention this in other videos, but the measurement from my palm right here to the tip of my middle finger is about 21 centimeters. So that generally puts me in a neighborhood where I would be using large mice. When I reviewed the Cooler Master MM520, that changed the game for me a little bit because it was both a smaller and a lighter mouse than I was used to. So I checked out a video from a dude named Rocket Jump Ninja. You had to have heard of this guy by now. He's an absolute beast with peripherals and specifically gaming mice. If you haven't heard of him, I'll put a link to his channel in the description below. But he did a great review video on the MM520 and 530. He went under the hood on the 520 and stripped the weight out of the body in that thing. Now, at first glance, this did not look like something that I wanted to involve myself in. As a fairly large guy, I've always used fairly large and fairly heavy mice, and I was just okay with that. But throughout the course of reviewing the MM520, it changed my playstyle substantially for the better. So after having used a slightly lighter mouse and certainly a smaller mouse than I was used to, it piqued my curiosity. So I was fortunate enough to have a couple of these mice laying around, so I went back and did the weight strip on one, and it almost instantly became my main mouse. And me being me, I'm never content. I'm always looking for the next rabbit hole to jump down, so I went off in search of the lightest, most responsive, most comfortable gaming mouse for me, and it led me to some pretty interesting places. So over the next 3 to 4 weeks, I'm gonna be bringing a series of reviews for mice that before I personally would never have chosen, and I'll probably cap it all off with a top list of my recommendations and some honorable mentions. Now, I will be weaving all these mouse reviews in and out of some different content, so you guys won't get hit with just a barrage of mouse reviews this summer. We'll also be looking at some custom cable and some custom glides and stuff as well. Should be fun. In the next days to come, we'll get started on the mice, circle back around on a couple of gaming headsets. I've got a video coming out I'm gonna have some fun with where I try to debunk a commonly accepted myth about gaming headsets. Got a couple of cases in the hopper, a new system build in the works, a couple of CPU air coolers to look at, some new peripherals. Might even try my hands at a hardline build. And I'm pretty sure I have a pretty sizable giveaway lined up for you guys as well. So stick around, it's gonna be a fun summer. I'm Brian P, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that sub button. And until next time, stay up.